The sky tore open with fire the day they came. From her hiding spot beneath the shattered ruins of an orbital relay station, Lena watched the Empire's dropships descend like steel vultures. Black-armored soldiers fanned out, silent and disciplined. Humanity's resistance on Varellan. 3 had lasted all of 7 minutes. Another colony world gone. Another name erased from the star charts by imperial decree. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She waited. The soldiers found her eventually. A teenage girl with dust-smudged cheeks, wrapped in a torn emergency cloak. She offered no resistance as they cuffed her hands behind her back and lifted her into the transport. No tears, no pleading, just steady eyes and silence. The ship's interior smelled of metal, antiseptic, and fear, though none of it was hers. Species designation: human. Female. Approximate Earth age: 16. A board ensign noted, scanning her with a shimmering blue lens. Low threat potential. Forward to research annex. Another prisoner. Another forgotten creature from a backwater world. The Empire had conquered thousands like her before. She was taken to Station Y9, a minor processing outpost near the fringe systems. It floated in orbit around a cold, dead moon. Just another cog in the Empire's machine. They didn't bother isolating her. Why would they? She wasn't dangerous. She was a human girl, no augmentations, no training, no weapons. Just another relic of a broken world. But Lena noticed things. She noticed the shift-change rotations of the guards. Noted a minor power fluctuation in the wall panel that might hint at a maintenance tunnel. She memorized the corridor layout after her second escorted walk to the food dispensary. She listened when they spoke their alien tongue, and by the third day, began to understand fragments. She said nothing, but she remembered everything. One guard, an unusually curious lieutenant named Arvek, decided to amuse himself by pulling up her prisoner file. A name was a name. After all, some of them have funny ones. Humans especially. He laughed at first. Lena? What kind of name is that? Then his gaze moved to the next line. His laughter stopped. Full name: Lena Terran-Rothschild. Planet of birth: Earth, Sector 004T. Lineage status: flagged. Security note: refer to Command Tier Alpha immediately. The screen pulsed red. His hand hovered over the terminal, unsure whether to close it or call for help. By the time he decided, the system had already alerted Central. Within minutes, the door to her cell hissed open. A new officer, older, gray-skinned, and rigid in posture, entered. His eyes flicked over her face, then to the cuffs still on her wrists. "Remove those," he ordered. The guards hesitated. "Sir, she's—" "I said remove them." The officer stepped forward. "You are Lena Terran-Rothschild?" She raised an eyebrow, the first sign of expression since arriving. "Yes." His throat tightened. "Do you understand what that name means?" "I do. And you didn't think to tell anyone?" "You didn't ask." The silence that followed pressed in like a vacuum. The Empire was vast. They had destroyed worlds, enslaved species, extinguished cultures. But some names still held power. Terran-Rothschild was not a name. It was a warning, a memory that haunted war records and black ink dossiers buried under layers of secrecy. In the next room, a high-priority meeting flickered into being over holocom. Uniformed silhouettes leaned in, muttering. Satellite archives were unearthed. Lost treaties reviewed. Simulations rerun. It couldn't be her. The bloodline was extinct. It had to be. It wasn't. Lena sat calmly as the storm unfolded beyond her walls. Not with arrogance, but with purpose. She had come here for a reason. Let them dig. Let them fear. Let the Empire remember. And in the cold silence of Station Y9, the most feared name in humanity's long, buried history returned. Not with warships or weapons, but in the stillness of a girl who said nothing at all. The change was immediate. Within hours of her name being confirmed, Lena was moved. Gone were the sterile metal walls of the holding cells. Her new quarters were high security, yes, but also furnished. A cot replaced with a full sleep pod. Surveillance, but discreet. Food, warm and frequent. She was no longer a prisoner. She was an unknown. And unknowns made the Empire nervous. Behind closed doors, commanders reviewed ancient records, some almost erased. Holograms flickered to life, showing fragments of old wars, classified transmissions, military defeats that had been rewritten in public history. All of them shared one thing in common: the Terran-Rothschild line. 4 centuries ago, in the early expansion era, the Galactic Empire had first clashed with human resistance. Most colonies folded quickly, unprepared for galactic warfare. But Earth fought differently, not with brute strength, but with minds that broke war the way code breaks firewalls. Tactical savants, subspace saboteurs, propaganda engineers who unraveled loyalty with a whisper. And at the center of it all, one family name: Alexander Terran-Rothschild. The man was a ghost. Some called him a war criminal, others a genius. He forged peace treaties with weapons ticking beneath the table, built AI advisors that could predict enemy movements days before they happened, hijacked a planetary blockade with a single-sentence broadcast in a forgotten dialect. When the Empire finally cornered him, he vanished into black space. The records suggested the line had ended with him. No confirmed heirs, no known relatives. Until now, on Station Y-9, Lena sat cross-legged, watching an info screen scroll through news feeds in languages she couldn't read, but whose emotions she understood. Panic, debate, fear. She didn't smile. She was still playing the part of detained girl. But inside, she knew the temperature had changed. They were afraid of her blood. Good. A soft chime echoed through her chamber. The door hissed open. Not guards this time, just a single figure. Tall, scarred, robed in the dark red of the old guard. Lord Vether. She recognized the name instantly. In the Rothschild memory logs, he was known as the last general, the only Imperial commander to survive a direct campaign against Alexander and live to tell the tale. He entered without ceremony, folding his hands behind his back as he studied her. "You look like him," he said at last. "Same eyes." "You were there?" Lena asked, tone flat but probing. Vether chuckled, dry as desert wind. "I was young, commanding the siege fleet over Liratau. Thought I was invincible." He paused. "Your ancestor turned my flagship's AI against us, made it plead for our surrender. The entire fleet stood down. I still hear the voice in my sleep." She said nothing. "I told them not to bring you here," he went on. "Told them the Rothschild name isn't a threat. It's a trigger. You don't kill a Rothschild. You wake them." Lena finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "Then why are you here?" "To see what kind of ghost you are," he said. "They think you're a girl with a famous name. I want to know if you're something more." "I'm just Lena," she replied. He smiled faintly. "That's what Alexander said, right before he collapsed my command chain with a lie about a non-existent wormhole." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "If you're here to finish what your bloodline started, don't wait too long. The Empire remembers what it fears." When he was gone, the door slid shut, and Lena let the stillness return. She sat motionless for several minutes. Then, slowly, she pulled a thin metallic band from beneath her sleeve. No more than a bracelet to the untrained eye, but it pulsed faintly when activated. A signal, silent, encrypted, centuries old, but still obeyed by the right machines. She tapped the sequence with her fingers, the code passed down through whispers and inheritance. A message, not of escape, but of awakening. Somewhere, in the deep dark between systems, something ancient stirred. Forgotten satellites blinked online. Cloaked ships shifted course. And across human space, old words began to circulate again. The bloodline survives. The Empire didn't know what to do with her. Lena was a paradox. By all scans and assessments, she was nothing more than a human teenager, unarmed, unaugmented, untouched by biotech. And yet, she now lived in a private, round-the-clock monitored suite normally reserved for high-ranking defectors or political prisoners of immense importance. The officers argued behind closed doors. Half wanted her transferred to the inner systems to be studied, dissected, understood. The other half, especially those old enough to remember the Rothschild name in classified war colleges, advocated for something more cautious. Some even whispered of appeasement. Anything to keep her from waking the legacy they'd buried. And all the while, Lena waited. She'd spent years preparing for this. The bracelet she activated 2 nights ago wasn't just a beacon. It was a cipher key, a trigger for a dormant network of old-world satellites, AI vaults, and deep space relays her family had seeded long ago, before Earth was declared a protectorate and forced to forget its true history. In the Empire's hubris, they'd let it all rot. But Rothschild tech never rotted. It waited. She now had limited access to the Empire's peripheral relay grid. Low security, but enough to listen. Enough to learn. The guards' routines. The internal command chatter. The nervous uptick in surveillance around her suite. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was a bomb, and they knew it. And they had no idea how long her fuse was. She began testing the system. Her first move was subtle. She rerouted a food order. Nothing drastic. A requested meal from another floor, delivered to her room instead. The droid made no complaint. It just complied. A hiccup, they thought. Until it happened again. Next, she delayed the door lock cycle by half a second. Long enough to signal weakness. Long enough to tell the system she was inside it. The Empire prided itself on control. Lena had just taken a bite. On the 5th day, the Emperor's voice herself, High Executor Cyril, sent a direct message through a secure channel to Station Y9. Do not provoke the girl. Stall. Watch. Above all, do not let her near any high-value systems. Not without clearance from the Council. They were too late. By then, Lena had already infiltrated the station's internal map. She could see where they moved, hear their doubts, smell the fear growing in their voices when they thought she couldn't hear. And she wasn't alone anymore. Signals, faint, encrypted pulses, answered her call. In the dark corners of space where the Empire's grasp had weakened, rogue colonies began whispering again. Tech havens that had vanished from star maps centuries ago. Human enclaves that still held to the old codes. They had waited generations for this name to return. A dozen signals came first, then 30. By the 6th day, over 100. Back on the station, the officers began arguing openly. She heard them through the walls, through the vents. She hasn't made a demand. She doesn't have to. This is psychological warfare. She's just a kid. She's a Rothschild. You think that's ever meant just a kid? That night, the door to her suite opened again. This time, with more formality. The guards bowed their heads. Not out of respect, but out of fear. She was escorted to the central command chamber. A ring of brass and chrome, lit by deep blue control panels and pulsing data streams. Every senior officer of Station Y9 stood in silence. Lord Vether awaited her at the center. You've been listening, he said without accusation. I've been waiting, Lena replied calmly. For what? She stepped closer. For you to remember who I am. He stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded slowly, almost with a kind of ancient regret. What do you want? He asked. Lena raised her chin. A transmission. One message. Secure line. My encryption. What? She didn't blink. Because I'm not asking again. Lord Vether turned to the others. Give it to her. The officers erupted in protest. You can't be serious. She could destroy this station. You're going to let her speak with. Vether silenced them with a single raised hand. She already has. The transmission was simple. No threats. No ultimatums. Just a sequence of tones embedded within a low-band whisper. So old, so encoded in Rothschild cipher, that the Empire's machines didn't recognize it as a message at all. But others did. In the cold between systems, where no Imperial eyes ever lingered, things moved. First, a derelict satellite in the Typhon waste came alive, its rusted shell shedding decades of dust as internal cores surged with power. Then a listening post hidden in the rings of Gal 3 blinked red. And in the shadows beyond the Empire's core worlds, a fleet answered. Unregistered. Cloaked. Silent. Humanity had hidden its greatest weapons in places the Empire had long dismissed, within ancient asteroids, frozen moons, even drifting colony hulks. Ships without flags, systems built on forgotten technology, piloted by descendants of those who once fought the Empire and vanished without a trace. Now they returned. To answer a name. On Station Y9, The shift in the command center was immediate. Systems flagged an incoming object, no signature, no ID, but moving with impossible precision. Then another, and another. Within minutes, 30 stealth-class human vessels surrounded the station. Their hulls were matte black, curved like predators, and utterly silent. The Empire scrambled fighters. The human fleet didn't fire. They only transmitted a single line. "Return the girl." Panic bloomed in the station's command ring. "They're not using standard channels. We can't jam them. They're inside our shield net. What class are these ships? Our scans can't get through the plating." Lord Vether stood still as the officer shouted. He knew this feeling. He had felt it once before, centuries ago, when Alexander Terran-Rothschild turned an entire fleet into puppets with nothing but sound and math. He looked at Lena. She had not moved. She simply watched. "This is no rescue mission," he said softly. "This is a reminder." An emergency hail rang through from Central Command, demanding an explanation, ordering an escalation, shouting down authority. Vether didn't answer. He turned to Lena. "What are your terms?" Lena's voice was steady. "Release all Earth-aligned colonies. Restore our independent trade routes. Remove the blockade on Terran systems." "You think you can dictate terms?" An admiral snapped. "You're a child." Lena turned to him. "No, I'm a Rothschild. You made the mistake of forgetting what that means." Outside, the fleet's weapons activated. No energy surge. No build-up. The systems just shifted. Sleek cannons unfurled from hulls like knives drawn from velvet. Every one of them pointed at the Empire station. A timer appeared on the command screens. 10 minutes. No explanation. Just time. The Empire had conquered 1,000 species. Crushed uprisings, raised planets, rewritten truth. But here, now, surrounded by silence and certainty, they remembered what fear felt like. Vether stepped forward. "I'll grant your demands. On one condition." Lena arched an eyebrow. "You never return," he said. "You walk away. Take your name with you. Let the past stay buried." She considered it, then nodded once. "Done." The countdown vanished. The ships withdrew formation, but remained present, watching, waiting. Lena turned to Vether as she was escorted to the hangar. "You made the right call." Vether said nothing, but as she passed, he bowed his head, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. Not to a girl, to a legacy. Hours later, aboard the human flagship Nocturne, Lena stood at the bridge, watching the stars slip by. The crew greeted her not with fanfare, but with a kind of solemn pride, as if she had merely taken her rightful place. She looked out into the void, then down at the ancient bracelet still pulsing on her wrist. "They thought I was just a girl," she murmured. Captain Mora, a broad-shouldered woman with silver-threaded braids, stepped beside her. "They always do." The stars ahead were uncharted, but Lena Terran-Rothschild had already redrawn the map.